KMB Office 5521 22 Sich. We will have a conversation quite simple, quite clear, kind of the briefing as this risk report made on January 20, 2022. The first idea that we will try to have on mind is that you can't be kind of a victim of something, especially considering we the element, the argument, the issue that you observe if you are part of this camp. For instance, if you keep yourself in silence and keep your mouth shut during the aggression, the abuse, and if you can have the action and you just do or did not was complaining, that's a lack of will. The lack of will be reported, and indeed was, as the taxation, which is the control as variance of your property. And this lack of will has an intimate relation with the laundry scam and the supporting and financing activity as terror and others. Those elements was complained in the same way at the Interpol by the Mr. Jürgen Stock as administration. And the issue was that these groups must have lost. But how can we force and push a loss against them if in general they control the scams, the procedures? By similarity, you can observe this on my area, Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, and even at this tiny small city named Saquarema. We, of course, must have something outside the box, and we created something authentic, something unique, something as an entire portfolio, as the interest presented as an industrial argument, even if it was white label, which can prepare and set the strike and impose this big loss. If we had the promiscuous behavior, the corruption, and the interconnected by the facility as approached by corrupted area, we got the point. And the point is quite clear as an industrial report. We will observe that, for instance, the deep blue allowed you to have the analysis and predict the plays during a match, since you have rules to be a player, I would say. And you must have at least one rule to do the use of the blue by comparative as similarity. And then we will check that this is so much easy to understand that, for instance, if I have my square number 1 and I have my square number 2, it doesn't matter which will be the qualification of this square. If I consider a failure or a risk, something that goes like this: an open space as a new rule inside an environment. And if you play by this new rule, which is something, for instance, against the statement of your company, is the same behavior as the aggression against a constitution, which had been made evidenced and proved by the aggression as violation of civil rights, basic rights, and guarantees. The interconnection of both had gone by corruption, and this integrated in global scale, of course, that is the systemic risk unsettled yet. Simple to understand, isn't it? And To get that all orientation as trending to -1, which is the failure at the square, and to keep this, as we had the speak at the very beginning, how can we impose a big loss against someone who is kind of leading the procedure and the scam? Quite simple. You have the qualification of them, segmenting the clusters of information. The cluster of information will be presented as positive one. Then we could got the corruption, as we could observe those two areas. And then we finally got that the corruption indeed is a criminal intent. And this criminal intent as motivation, qualify you all as a criminal organization. And if you are all interconnected by corruption and the premise of accusation is the corruption, you all will have a big loss by this group, report here. And the systemic risk unset that yet can be set except if you, keep the silence. And we do a comparative measurement. The failure in Brazil is the same failure in America against the law, against the Constitution, against civil rights, basic rights, and guarantees. And the statement of company that must be accorded with the company, with the Constitution and the legal system. There are no legal system allowed you to have the corruption as premise of organization. So, we separated now the premise of the organization, which is the corruption, something that affects the legal area or the criminal areas by the interconnection, interest or purpose by these two failures. Paradox, but it's life. So, any question? I bet you don't, and you will pay. It's claiming to have a review of the value and beef up and increase the value. There are no possibility to increase because you only diverted 33 trillion only. And it means that the first kickoff was 3 trillion as an individual, and you keep the violations, the unfair aggression until hurt the interests of we all, considering the risk as genocide and the menace as an argument that authorize the things in Brazil to be made, replacing the lack of will by our constitution. We will kind of can have the same pattern as similarity, considering the Fibonacci and fractal as 1% of first trillion. It means that we will, for instance, I will transfer this paper and the way we're having, and I will receive 1% of first trillion. I can transfer as an investment, donation to such a group and research all things to cover the 33 trillion. And when you get the 33 trillion, you can have a factory as 1% of this 33 trillion that is can be covered but didn't cover it yet, and then you will receive this as a factory, and then you can, for instance, transfer to someone else or just forgive this paper, but the causality remains, which is the origination as the corruption used to violate my civil rights, my basic rights and guarantees. Put yourself outside the box, having the control of the international system as finance, communication, but to both as fintech, which is economical argument, as evaluation, to to do not have the deeper level as trending, -1 as 0, something with a real result. Naturalist is the name, according to the criminal science. And if we could get that the point as a breaking even point to have the criminal purpose inside the regular area, the corruption, and when we push the corruption, the threats, and indeed the threats as rats offering criminals, of course that the interconnection, is the situation. But we told you that maybe we will have the law enforcement at the interface, and then we had a distribution of values considering the COBOL optimizer to do this. I'm very tired, and it's the values distributed as +1, internal value +1, 100% okay, and with the motivation +1. It's my case. Then, and I think that's only me, because I'm a single individual. Then we will check that we will have the loss as integrity at the motivation, I would say, are the interest. But in the -1 here, this -1 can give me the criminals. And we told you that maybe we will have the infiltrated agents inside the law enforcement, which will give you the situation as my agents, inside the criminal area that can give me the criminals and the corrupted values. And then I will save them, and the criminal groups as transnational organized crime will forgive them, because they are kind of doing a favor, even if you had lost as criminal, because you have no guarantee, you are outlaw. But we are avoiding that a new mod as mafia group emerge based on public corruption that will commit crimes, invent situation and put everybody under the domain of an evil mental model. But thank God the systemic risk is unsettled yet, except if you keep your silence and you consider serious departments all around to have this as an international law enforcement and hit the target by law, doing this compensation and imposing a big loss by the chain connected by corruption and interconnected by events all around the globe. And this got increased from micro to macro, and the compensation goes from micro as individual, and you kept the violations and the behavior and the threats until hit a diffuse interest, and now you can be charged at macro. And the macro environment, considering this international law enforcement, since entirely +1, +1, can have the factory now consider the big amount of money diverted. 3 trillion is a piece, 33 trillion is the entire amount of money, and was diverted from a treasury by an association, which is the association crime. And this going from time to time during a long period gives you the idea as transnational organized crime based on corruption interconnected by failure or interest in keep the failure at control instruments. And they have this outside the box as the hell's bound. And you will be sent to jail. I bet you do. Have a nice week.